Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there, and to all who act like fathers in some capacity. Fatherhood is a state of being, but it is also a function of action. What does it mean to be a father versus acting like one? Now, from the moment of conception, a father's biological function is done. Fatherhood, from this perspective, is just a state of being. Is he the father? Yes, he's the father. If he disappears totally from the scene, he's still the father. But the person who stays and behaves as a father might be the one that becomes the real father. Fatherhood has often been traditionally defined as external role. Fathers are seldom asked if they feel like a father. They're just expected to do the fatherly thing, to be a provider. Men are often defined by what they do. They are their jobs at a party or a social function. The second question after you find out a man's name is, what do you do? Now, if they answer, I am a father, they say, yeah, that's very nice, but what do you do? Children might be what a man devotes his life to, but the job is the thing that identity is attached to. And why is this? Is our job the most important thing we do? And how much does what you do define who you are? And then what's more important, the quantity or the quality of your doing? Now, if I think about my life in a time study and what I do, I probably should define myself as a sleeper. Because I sleep about 7 to 9 hours a day, and I don't miss a day. I work as a minister, but I take days off. Well, technically, I'm on call, which is a funny thing, but I do not spend 24 hours a day ministering. Now, you could call me a preacher, but if I spend more than 20 minutes a week preaching, people get restless. I'm a pastor when I make care calls, but most days I'm an emailer or event planner, a reader, a writer. But those are the things I do for my living, and they're not my life. I enjoy doing them, and I'm fortunate to have a job that lets me do things that I like, but it's not my life. I am also a husband and a father. Now, those are also on-call jobs that you need to be ready to be called at any time in a 24-hour period, but you think about how much time do you spend actually husbanding or fathering? Now, as my son has grown older, I do less and less fathering actions. I cannot remember the last time we played ball in the yard. And of course, one of the jobs of a father is to be a protector. But for the last 3 years, I want him by my side to protect me. When I move away, I will still be a father, still a provider, hopefully less and less as the years go on. But I hear from fathers older than me that never really stops. Yet still a father. Father is something I do But it's not about the hours that I put into doing it. It's that choosing to make myself available, choosing to be ready for anything. I chose to become a father years ago, and that was enough to become a father. But to actually be a father, I had to choose to do fatherhood every day. And some days are busier than others. Last week, I led an exercise where we stripped away all our roles until we found out who we are, left to our ideals that were at our core. We pondered who we were to our core, and then were asked to live those ideals. But what if we discover our ideals by doing them first? What if it is by doing that we figure out who we are, rather than figuring out who we are and then deciding to do something? Some feel that considering your being is the place to start. Socrates said to be is to do. But some equate being with nothingness and argue how we have to act. Sartre said to do is to be. The compromise in this philosophical question was presented by Sinatra, who said, "Doobie-doobie-doo." I know. When I started as a father, I was painfully unaware what to do. This was my first baby, my wife's third, and it became real clear that I was clueless. But by doing, I became a father, and one of the books that I read was The Velveteen Rabbit, where the toy rabbit becomes more real as it becomes more worn out. Likewise, I became a father as I became more worn out. You can figure out who you are through introspection like we did last week and finding your ideals, but you really never know for sure what your ideals are until you do them. When you're called on and ready to do it over and over again. Sometime at some level, each of you looked at your ideals and decided to come here to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And I've heard many of you say when I teach classes, I was always a Unitarian Universalist, but I didn't know it till I came here. So there's a real sense of having that sense of an ideal that drove you to this place. But then you get here. You say, I'm a UU, and then what's next? And it's a process of discovering who we want to be. And it's a journey. Because a lot of us are attracted by our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all people. And it's a great place. That's great. All my life, people have been telling me I'm a sinner and I'm not good enough and that I have no potential. And for one reason or another, sign me up. I want a church that honors my inherent worth and dignity. And people say, yes, I'm a Unitarian. And then they get here and they learn, oh, I have to honor the worth and dignity of others too. That's where the work begins. That's where the real doing happens. So you look at what does it mean to be a Unitarianism? What do you do as a result of that? Is Unitarian Universalism something you do for 1 hour a week? And I know some of you are here many more hours than that. But I also know that it is possible to be a Unitarian Universalist when you're not on the premises. Just as it's possible to be a parent even when you are away from your kids? How do you do you at work? When someone makes a comment that denies the inherent worth of every person, do you speak up like a you, or are you silent? How do you do this you? What opportunities do we take to promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations? What do we do to make that ideal real? How do we accept one another? How do we encourage spiritual growth? How do we promote the democratic process in our congregations and society at large? And how do we find our place in the interdependent web? From the time of my childhood, I like the reading from the book of James that faith without works is dead. And faith are those ideals that drive us. But it is the doing that we find out who we are. And I think when we take a chance to look at our lives and say, what do we actually do? What do we actually do? We have to reflect and say, what does it mean to be a Unitarian Universalist? Does it just mean that I signed on the dotted line that the 7 principles are kind of cool things? Or does there some doing? Those 7 principles begin with the words affirm and promote. The affirming is that kind of internal, yep, I agree. But the promote is the doing. And that as I leave here in a month or two to take a position up in another church, I will be still doing Unitarian Universalism. And I know that you will be too. And I want you to continue to think every day, I'm a you. What does that call me to do? May we bless and be blessed.